This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
It sounds like one of the names they would have for a monarch. It's like Queen Javia the First, Black Radical Queer, among queer Negro women.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
I'm on my black girl magic voodoo shit, with the bamboo earrings on some new shit. I'm new when this money asking who this bitch. I'm the bitch with the pussy with the judo grip.
Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole. Welcome back to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. Today, I actually have a guest with me who has been on before. She wasn't on by herself though, she was on with someone else. And so this time I get her all to myself and we get to talk shit. And I think that it will just be a nice, fun conversation. But I also think it's a really good follow-up to my last guest, because something that stood out and something that it's something I've been saying to you all, just over the course of the podcast period, but something that I'm really, really hardcore trying to stress heavy in 2019 is, all of my Black radical queer baddies, as I call y'all, that we center ourselves unapologetically. And in my last episode, that's something that in a very difficult situation, my guest really talked about doing that. And it was something that was radical because, you're dealing with family. And so my guest today has done that as well in several radical ways. And so I think that, it'll just be cool to talk about it and get another perspective and hopefully just continue to encourage you all to center yourself unapologetically, even when it's hard, even when you have to cut loose people that you didn't think you would have to, or even when you have to make those very difficult decisions. So as usual, I'm going to allow my guests to introduce herself, and then we will get into our conversation.
Well, podcast over. That was the whole thing. That was perfect. Cut here.
Really?
That was everything I was going to say. Like, what is even the point now? No. Hi. So I'm Alexa. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm just a regular nigga out here. The last time I was on, I was like, I'm just surviving. But now I'm actually really thriving. And it's a creepy place to be in because what the fuck is even that? So we'll see. We'll see. And we'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, I'm a regular person. I promise.
Yeah, I'm being real ridiculous and ratchet right now. Don't mind me. No, I think it is very important to make a transition from survival to thriving in a world that don't even want you to survive. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's anything to take lightly, which is really what I was thinking about. Like when I hit Alexa up, like, hey, would you be down to come back on the podcast? I already knew I wanted her to come back on, but we're, Facebook friends. So seeing her post and stuff like that. And I've been able to see that transition happen in writing, like see it happen over the course of last year. I mean, or even over the course of like the past 6-7 months from the time that she was on the podcast to now. So it really was, to me, awesome to witness. And I thought, it's a very important transition. We don't want to just survive. We don't want to just exist. We want to be able to thrive. And so what I wanted to talk with Alexa about is what are some ways, which partially I know the answer, but I want y'all to know. What are some ways that you have centered yourself just over the past 6 months? Because we won't even go into before the last time you were on. But a big chunk of time has passed since you were on, because you were on my first episode.
Yes, I was. Oh, it was such an honor. And it's totally an honor to be back.
But,
yeah.
We've had quite a few weeks pass. So I want for you to, just go ahead and let people know what are some ways that you have transitioned from surviving to thriving.
So The first thing I had to do was make a decision on if I was going to do the damn thing or not. If I had made the decision to live an intentional life, and I'd been intentional up until this particular point of me, I had worked on everything outside of me and being able to control my environment. But now it was time for me to do some me work. And I thought this whole time that's what I was doing, but it was different. And I had to make the choice on whether or not I was going to do it. And once I decided to do it, it was a pretty easy transition, that transition particularly, because there were so many things around me that were pissing me off. One of which was my living environment. When we first chatted on the first episode of this podcast, I was living in, oh my God. I was living like in a hippie hell, like just this weird place of like living with white women who are on their own like internal personal journeys, but they are picking and choosing whatever the fuck they want. And the woman I was living with in particular decided that she was going to pick and choose the Orishas. And girl, the Orishas, my Orishas, my beloveds. She decided that this is who she is, and that's why we were meant to live together. And she was creepy. I can't even, that's a whole nother podcast. When you have the podcast about white supremacy, give me a call about that one too, girl. Because let me tell you something, that was terrifying. I lived with this white supremacist that was picking and choosing parts of my body and my hair, my skin and my life and my being to put on that just suited her. And in the past, I would have absorbed that and just been like, girl, just keep your head down. You know, this is just temporary. You already knew you was going to have to find another place to live. I decided to be fucking pissed in her face often, to the point where I had to leave that living environment. And it was really, it was not easy. I don't want to make it seem like my rage carried me forward, because low key it did. But my community, the people that I had kept around me that were squishy and soft and nice and kind and loving, were able to be like, all right, we're going to form a net because you got to jump. This is bad. Like, you got to jump ship. Right. This is a wrap. You cannot stay here. This is the most unhealthiest. Like, right. All the work I had done, I'd really come to a point of, am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. My community's got me. I got to get the fuck out of this. Then I had to get out of my fucking working environment, which was the same thing, except it's corporate.
Let me backtrack a little bit.
Ooh, girl.
How did you go from being in that place where you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to keep my head down and, you know, kind of just push through, and this is only temporary, to going. So that's, you know, really kind of taking a more passive approach to taking a more assertive approach to like, no, I'm going to be seen, I'm going to be heard, because you had to make that shift before you really allow your to be seen. So it's like, was there something that was a catalyst for that? Was there anything that happened that made you be like, you know what, I can't just keep my head down anymore?
So I had been on an intentional self-concept rebuilding journey since 2015. So in 2015, I decided I was going to start working on things and manifesting things in my life that I wanted. And I had to be strategic about it. So I had to learn some stuff. And so I went on this journey, and I talked about it in the first book, college and blah, 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 blah. But after I'd acquired all of this information about what is squishing me, what is making me feel like I can't do anything, what is suffocating me. Okay, cool. I understand it's white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalistic garbage. Cool. Now what? Like, I was kind of like in a limbo of like, okay, I know this, but I want to live. Like, I don't want to be like wrapped up in this to the point where I can't move. I don't want to be petrified. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be afraid, but able to move forward. I wanted to learn how to be scared and get shit done.
Instead of having like that paralyzing fear.
Yeah, like, because I had been paralyzed. And you know what?
Not as paralyzing, yeah.
Being paralyzed was good for what it was. I was able to be still and not hurt myself accidentally, bumping into other people and hurting other people. The paralyzed feeling was good for then, but it was time to move, and I wanted to know how the fuck was I supposed to do that? And I can't even begin to describe that process. It's ineffable. And it's very individual, because I meet people all the time who are also doing this work, and it looks completely different. And I would never do it that way, ever, ever, ever. But it has gotten them to the same place that I am. And that's just a testament of, I know you wanted to talk about family, and I guess this is a perfect segue. I had to look at my childhood, and I had to look at how I was raised, who raised me, and who raised them, and who raised them, and who raised them. So I understand we're all living in this system, but like, what does that mean? What does that do to the human psyche and the human spirit? And how does that affect how we parent and relate to other people, specifically people that we deem to be subordinate, such as children? How are we treating children? Like, my heart just has been so broken with what's happening with children at the border. It's breaking my heart because my family doesn't understand how this has happened. And I'm like, what do you mean? We live in a nation that doesn't care about kids, doesn't care. And it starts at home. Where are we learning that? Little tiny things, little things like the way we gaslight kids out of their experiences of something we've done specifically. Maybe we lied. Or maybe we just forgot that we promised them the thing that we said we was going to give them. And now we're tired and don't want to do it anymore. So now we gaslight the shit out of the kid.
Now we're like, oh, no, I didn't say either.
Exactly.
Line. I didn't say I would do that. Or you saying, oh, don't worry about it. It's this whole, very much a do as I say, not as I do type of thing. Very much like you're blameless because you're an adult. It's actually with the last person I spoke with when I talked to Lynx, I talked about that with them too, because we're talking about how parents, a lot of times there's this like idea that parents don't have to apologize to children, that children don't, which that bothers me so much because that was not my upbringing. Like one of the things I remember when I got older and I went back to my mom and I was like, Mom, I appreciate the fact that you apologized to us. And I didn't know that wasn't a normal thing, quote unquote, until I kind of got glimpses of how my friends' experiences were and like my cousins and stuff. And I saw how their parents interacted with them. And I was just like, my mom is not like this. Like, it wasn't like she was trying to be my homie, but she also did us like human beings and not her, you know? So she was like, she apologized to us. And I was just like, Mom, you don't know how, because, you know, she was a single mother. And so she was like, you know, I feel like there was so much more I want to do for you guys. She apologized to us. And I was like, you don't have to apologize for that. But I do want to acknowledge, like, as we grew up, if you made a mistake or something, you did apologize. And that was so meaningful to me.
That is so real.
Children are people. So why is it that it's like, you know, children kind of like relegated to second-class citizens?
That's exactly what it's like. The idea that children are simply born to bear the legacy of someone who is already alive and is going to die eventually. And now it is your burden, you stranger. Here's my ideas and thoughts and feelings and values and norms and beliefs. Here, you carry that on. What the hell? Right. This person did not exist, literally did not exist, came here to Earth. And now you are telling them they have to do some shit that has nothing to do with them at all.
Some people only have kids for that reason.
They only, and I didn't want to accept that that's why my parents had me. I didn't want to accept that that was a thing that had happened to me. That happened to those other folks. That happened to friends I know, but not me, because my parents and and we're Caribbean and we stick together.
It's such a common thing though, like that rhetoric. You know how folks will say it, particularly when they're talking about like having sons and stuff, but they'll say, oh, we gotta have either like a son to carry on the family name, or we gotta have kids to carry on this legacy or whatever. Like, that's very common rhetoric that it's like, you know, kids are laborers and they're just, you know,
they're emotional laborers.
Whatever you put down. You know what I mean? Like, that's so easy to me.
Oh, yeah. Like, charging a child with the emotional labor of two full-grown adults plus themselves is really rude, to say the least, and absolutely unacceptable and almost impossible. We wonder why kids just be damn tired. What you mean? And then it's not just their parents.
They don't have any reason to be tired.
Right.
You know?
But they're getting it from left and right. They're getting it from every single adult that they know. It's not just the person that is taking care of them or raising them. And, you know, I spent some time in New York and I spent time with homeless youth. And these incredible fucking children taught me a lot about family. And I'm saying I had to reorient family so that I could recenter myself, because my family taught me that I don't matter. Whatever it is I'm thinking, whatever it is I want, I don't matter, or it didn't happen, or it's not real, or it's not possible. And it's like it was like living in a fog. I commonly refer to my childhood as feeling like I was in a fog all the time, just hazy, don't really remember a lot of things. I was being gaslit. It's the effect of being gaslit for so long while your brain is developing. We're just torturing children by not letting them live authentically, by not providing safe spaces for them. You know, sis, I really want to thank you, because today is no coincidence that today is the premiere of Surviving R. Kelly. It's no coincidence at all.
Well, I'll tell you, I was just looking at that
girl,
the little like trailer thing, because I've been keeping up with it on Instagram. Listen here. Don't even get me started on that. That's
girl, we ain't gonna get started. We're not. But but
you know what? Something that you just said that really just stuck with me. Just talking about kids being basically gaslit so much that while their brain is developing. And a conversation that my wife and I have had, like, we talk about, things we've been through, trauma and just stuff like that. And I was like, I was telling her, I was like, there's a lot of chunks that I don't remember. Like, there are chunks that I just don't remember. And she, expressed there are some things she didn't remember too. And I'm just like, I don't know why that is, because I know, of course, the human brain is what it is, but they're just like the amount of time it really bothers me that I don't remember. And I wonder if that's what it was. I mean, I never felt like, the gaslighting came from my mother or whatever, but I did have other, like extended family and stuff like that who definitely made me feel some kind of way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, once you said that, I'm like, because there's a big chunk and it really bothers me that I don't. And I'm like, I don't know if it's just, it might be like my brain is like, this is repressed for your safety, for your safety.
And you know what? Yes. Because that's a function of the brain, to hide things from your consciousness so that you can function. So yeah, a lot of us have repressed memories. There's a lot. I have been, I have that BA in psychology that's sitting somewhere dustily. And I always try to revisit this idea of studying like longitudinal effects of gaslighting.
Yeah, for real.
Because there's something there. There's really something there. Because if we're being gaslit as queer people of color, I can't imagine what is happening to the other. Because I think of white folks as the other, not gonna lie, just saying. That's just how I feel. But when I look at them outside of the media I've cultivated for myself, they are also exhibiting some bizarre effects of gaslighting. Everyone's being gaslit to believe the same lie. Whether it's like you talked about how the gaslighting wasn't coming from your parents, it was coming from the system that was built around you. Your parents were good at protecting you like they're supposed to do, because that's what parents are. But not a lot of us are being protected by our parents, mostly because they don't even know that they need to protect us from those things, because they're also gaslit.
Right. And it's only so much they can do, because it depends on, and then too with my mom, my mom was a single mother. So, she's doing, a lot. She has had me and my sister, and like is trying to play the role of more than one parent. I really, like, my grandmother was really like my grandmother who just passed is really like my other parent, essentially. So she really was trying to, do a lot. And so I know there was she, of course, would protect us from what she could and try to explain stuff to us and break stuff down. But the reality is in kids' lives, we go to school, we go other places where our parents are with us. And if they are, trying to do what they can. And especially because of the relationship that a lot of adults have to children, we can't expect all adults to be protective. So you may look at people who are in authority positions like teachers or administrators and stuff like that. And that doesn't mean that they're in a position to be a protector, either by choice or by force. So, and for those who don't know, because I've been trying not to assume that everybody knows like all these terms. So gaslighting. So this is an example, or this is kind of like an explanation. So gaslighting would be if, let's say, someone did something to you and it hurt your feelings, right? It made you feel some kind of way. And you were like, and you go to them and you're like, hey, that hurt my feelings. And they flip it and they basically twist things so that you feel like you're crazy. So they're like, well, actually it wasn't like that. And you did this, like they just flipped the script on you. So instead of being accountable and instead of actually acknowledging the impact they had on you, they twist things around and everything's your fault. So now you're carrying that. And then you're questioning yourself like, oh, dang, actually, did this happen? Am I crazy? Like you're questioning your own sanity.
Right,
so it can be, so it's very manipulative and abusive. And it's a classic thing that people do. Like, I mean, I've had people who have downright, violated me. And then I'm like, you did this. And they're like, it didn't happen like that. And actually, it's around to where I start questioning my own memory. Like, wait, what did I do? Maybe you know what I mean? That kind of like, oh, maybe I brought this on. So that's gaslighting. It's like how you feel, but this person twists things around so much that you end up, leaving that interaction feeling like you did something wrong, or like it's all in your head.
Or like you weren't even there. Like you weren't even present for what even the hell they're talking about.
Because your memory of it clearly is just
confused. They want to leave you in a state of complete confusion so that you could just either spend all of your time being confused and never holding them accountable or expecting better behavior, or to just coalesce and do whatever it is that they are wanting you to do, or forget whatever it is they're wanting you to forget. And, I think about like generations of that, from the very first time anyone came here, the gaslighting, that example, that upon generations of people, it's hard breaking that, not doing that.
Right.
And I'm trying to think of tangible things because I want it to be tangible. I had to take all of these ideas and make them applicable in order to be able to get to a thriving place. And I had to integrate things. I had to start trying things. I had to start challenging myself. I had to build my character. I had to be a person of integrity, to do the things I said I was going to do, to behave in the ways that I said I was going to behave. I had to learn discipline, something I didn't learn, but I was disciplined a whole hell of a lot as a child. I was either getting my ass whooped, or I was always on fucking punishment, or I was getting suspended. We know Black girls get suspended. Like, what is it? 4 times or three times their counterparts. Oh, I was suspended so much as a child. So much. Just for talking, saying things, speaking out.
That's another manifestation of that gaslighting. It's like all that stuff is like just one other way that is done. And that's such a common dynamic between parents and children.
Yes.
So you got to a place where it's like you're kind of evaluating all this stuff and you're like, wait a minute, this is the relationship I have had with my parents.
Yes, exactly. Like I never learned what the meaning of discipline was, or I never learned the meaning of even good and bad became hazy. Like my imposter syndrome, which is this idea of this isn't happening to me as it's described. For me, was more like, why aren't people believing me? It was just constantly being upset that people kept telling me, well, you were too loud in class. But Dad, this boy, he hit me and I was telling him to stop. No, but your teacher said, your administrators, are they liars? Well, probably. Yeah. I don't know what you want me to say. Well, why are you talking this way? Now I'm on punishment and that's teaching me discipline. No, I was never able. Discipline is following something through, finishing it to the end. I didn't finish anything. I never used to finish a fucking thing. Not poetry, not art, not my homework. The only thing I ever finished was my degree, honestly. And that's because I decided I was going to teach myself to be disciplined because I didn't learn it as a child. My parents failed in that. And I think my parents feel like I blame them for things, but it's me naming the problems so I can resolve them so that I'm not just dragging ass through life. I now have the skill. I needed it. I did need to learn discipline. Duh. But I didn't need to learn it like that. That wasn't it. Now I know how to do it. Now I can do things I want to do, like decorate or create art or be in a relationship. Something that I can do things now. Parenting is about helping a child. That wasn't discipline. That was really silencing, So it's like, yes, it was totally silencing.
It's like, oh, it's a child. I don't like what you're saying. Stay in a child's place. It's that kind of thing. I don't like what you're saying. So I'm trying to silence you. I'm trying to, cut that behavior. And so that's definitely not this. And it's crazy because I actually was just reading something that was talking about parents discipline their kids. And there's this whole idea where, especially with Black parents, they were saying, oh, well, I'm hard on you at home because, you know, the world's going to be harder on you, and that whole type of thought process. And, but the reality is, you know, kids suffer from violence and stuff like that at the hands of their parents more than they do from strangers.
Yes.
They do even from the cops. So that's what, you know, it's kind of like that's more prevalent. And my thing is, why not be a haven and a home? Why does it have to be, let me be the first person to be hard on you. Let me be the first person to silence you and to make you feel less than and to make you feel like, you know, you don't matter because that's how the world's going to make you feel. What? Where's the balance in that? You know, like that's ridiculous. You don't feel safe. You don't feel supported. Oh, well, I'm making you feel that way because the world's going to treat you bad. So let me treat you bad first. People don't realize how fucking ridiculous that is. That's ridiculous. This is your child.
It's like people run. They run to be adults so they can immediately inflict pain upon children. It's bizarre. It really but honestly, that is the rhetoric. When you're an adult, you can do whatever you want. Because when you're a child, you can't do shit. So no wonder people can't wait to be 18 and just wreak havoc on society. Right. They've been waiting their whole lives.
Like, I can do what I want to do. I can say what I want to say because of being silenced so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
exactly.
You see the meme circulating where folks are like, oh, if I did that, if I said that, my mama would have popped me in the mouth. My daddy would have smacked me. Right. Those kind of things. And so then you finally get to a place where you're like, oh, I'm an adult. I can say what the hell I want to say now. I can express myself. I can do this and a third. You've been holding your breath and, you know, for years. And so you haven't had the opportunity. And then you go, you know, and perpetuate that same cycle. So it's like for you, did you actually did you have a conversation with your parents? Like once you, you know, kind of went through this process, like that was internal. Did you have a conversation with your parents? Like, how did you get to...
Ooh, child, I cussed them niggas out. I dragged them from Sunday to next Saturday. I lambasted them everywhere. I told my auntie to her face. I told my grandma to her face. I told everybody to their face. Whoever harmed me, you know, I wasn't just slaughtering the hearts and minds of my family just because it felt delicious. Because that is a thing. But that's not what I was doing. I was definitely, though, devouring the pain exactly where it was. And they were, of course, not at all receptive to any of that. They pulled out their regular tactics. But once they realized that I'm not that person that you're trying to step on, they just disappeared. They just decided to not.
So you held them accountable. And they just
absolutely. And you know what? For the older generations, I was very direct because I had to be, because they're older folks, and sometimes with older folks, the ageism that comes from the older.
Like you
you have to be. I thought I had to position myself so that I would be able to say those things to them. So I went through that process. But with my parents, I'm an only child, and I tell people all the time, don't nobody know my mom and daddy like me, because I was the only one there. Was nobody else there. So I talk to them niggas like niggas because they motherfucking niggas. I respected my grandmother and my aunt enough for what they were trying to do, which is hold like at least 137 people safe. I understood that process, but my parents were the product of that process. And so I was accurately empathetic towards what it had to have been like to be raised by those women, because that was hard for both of my parents in very different ways. My mom kind of followed the same pattern that her mother did, which was get married immediately, as soon as possible. And that worked for what it needed to work for, but it just didn't work for my mother. And it probably didn't work for my dad either. They just didn't have the chance to do anything. And now they're parents, and maybe they don't really want to do that, but they're going to do it, I guess. But they don't really have blueprints. Right. It's just kind of like,
parents.
Yeah. And I had to let my parents know, like, look, I would like to have a relationship with you guys, but we got to talk. We got to talk about a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit we need to talk about that you never let me talk about. And you may feel that it's so long ago that it shouldn't matter, but you got to be mad. My mother got to have her lemonade moment about infidelity. I didn't. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And when I did, it was too late to be mad. Oh, how convenient. How convenient that nobody has to deal with my anger about my father disrupting my life, because his infidelity disrupted my life. I was a child. I had no choice but to do what the adults told me to do. And it was disruptive. It was awful. And I wanted to tell them that. I could never say that to them.
Right.
They just didn't want to hear it. But I also had to learn that whether or not they wanted to hear it was irrelevant. I needed to name the pain so that I could get the fuck through it. I decided to name the pain to their faces because I'm a Pisces and I'm a gangster and I get up in your grill. But you know, I don't recommend it if your parents like pistol whipped you. Don't talk to them niggas. Fuck them niggas. Fuck them. Don't do that if that's not what you need to do.
Name it for yourself, because ultimately
exactly
it's for yourself.
Yes, it's about naming it for you. But I am petty and wanted to make a statement because my parents were also unintentionally cruel. But that's neither here nor there. That process, though, made me feel strong and it made me feel capable and it made me feel myself. I listened to Beyonce all the way back to Decatur. Like I felt free as shit. And this was on the heels of dropping a lot of people that needed to go. And my parents were just the last of that whole bunch, that whole part of my life that just needed to fall away so that I could go and move and be. I could wish well for these folks, but they ain't got to be in my face or in my space because they're toxic for me.
Right.
That is how that whole process, which mind you, took me 8 years. Please don't be mistaken. Oh my God. 8 years to get to be able to cuss out my parents to their face. That was how I was able to fucking move out of a house that was a white supremacist and abandon and divest from corporate culture and completely, fully invest in community as a way to center myself even further. Because when I take care of myself, I am better able to do the things I'm already doing for my community. I'm better able to spend time with people. I contribute emotionally to the lives of my loved ones. I am the ear. You can talk to me for hours. I will help you parse through your thoughts. I love you. I want you to understand yourself, but I can't do that if I'm depleted and dying and sick.
I know
so I
say it all the time,
had to center me so I could better bolster my community so they could be able to bolster their community. You know what I mean? Like I had to shift what was important. And when I made myself important and my thoughts and my ideas and my values, it got easier and easier and easier. But it was harrowing.
It's something that has to be a learned skill because we are we're definitely not taught to center ourselves, you know? And so it's one of those things, it's like you have to kind of just do it until you get accustomed to doing it. And so I think that once, you know, folks get to a place where they are able to do that, it is transformative, you know, to be able to do that. It is. I know that one of the things that I've joked with you about, but that for real is, to me, I think important because we look at centering ourselves and what that looks like. And I know, of course, there's that cliche of like, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup, but it's absolutely true. You can't. And so you have to kind of look at where are all the places where that it's like, you know, something that someone I know said that I love, and she like described herself as like a 72 ounce cup or something like that. And she's like, you know,
yes,
cup, you know, I have a lot, but, you know, look at things and people in your life as little holes. So you can still have liquid water in your cup, but, you know, the more little holes you are, the more water that's going to seep out until, you know, you just don't have anything anymore. And you have to patch those up, and it has to be a good job. It can't be, oh, I put paper over it. Okay, water can get through paper.
Right.
You know, you got to actually put something that's going to, you know, put some cement, put something that's going to be strong enough so that you can, you know, kind of recharge and be able to continue doing what you do. But I think some of the hardest ways for us to do that, definitely with like parents and family, especially parents, I believe, that's very difficult. So that's why that was one of the things I want to focus on. And also in relationships, like in romance, I think it's very hard. So you mentioned, look, you mentioned, so this is something that Alexa mentioned on Facebook that had me rolling. And because I was just like, yes, this is how it needs to happen. So tell the people about you kicking somebody out your car.
Oh my God.
Another example of where you had to censor yourself, and it's you know, kind of another manifestation of it, because it's one thing to have to do that with your parents and your family and stuff like that, but it's another thing to do it in your dating, especially as a woman, you know?
Whew, child. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna tell you the moral of the story before I even tell you. The moral of the story is delete Tinder is the moral of the story. So I was like,
Really?
I was sliding through
Delete.
this. I know, right? Delete. And never re-download. So I was sliding through on a dick appointment. This is a new guy. And sex was aight. It was aight. It was a disappointment. If it's aight, it's a disappointment. So he's like, all right, let's go get something to eat. Let's, just talk and get to know each other. I'm like, cool. You can buy me some chicken. That's fine. I want some chicken. We roll through the Popeyes drive-thru. And where this particular Popeyes is, like the parking lot is adjacent to the building. You have to walk across the drive-thru to get to the building. And so we're sitting in the car. He's talking. I'm not really listening. And there's this little girl, her mom, that they cross in front of us. And she has the extensions, but the Beyonce, the formation tour with the ones that was unraveled at the ends, it was halfway braided down. It was so cute. And before I could say, oh my God, she looks so adorable, this man says, boy, I'll beat my daughter ass if I ever see her with some weave in her head like that. I was like, nigga, what? He was like, huh? What? Oh, what? Because I said I would beat my baby mama ass if she put some weave in my daughter's head. I said, is that what you said? Oh, so now you're trying to make it seem like I didn't hear what the fuck you said? I said, what? Because I wanted you to say with your chest, get out my car. He was like, what? I was like, get out my car. Bye. I unbuckled his seatbelt. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, get the fuck out. Reached over him and opened the door. I was like, you could bounce. You could literally bounce. You tripping? Yeah, I'm tripping. You could tip your ass out my car. So he leaves. Right. I pop me a Yui and I go home. No. So many things. One, the little girl in me would have loved for someone to have said something like that about me. Two, the Black woman in me would have loved for someone to have said something like that about me. Three, I don't want to associate with a man who thinks it's okay to beat a child for any reason ever, especially not because of hair, which we already not getting paid and not being hired and being fired because of our hair. Now we getting our asses beat by our daddies.
But you know what made that even better / worse? Which is the fact that he thought that the way to correct himself was to say, "Oh, I will beat my baby mama ass." Wait, sir, but that's better.
No, that's not better. No, that's worse. That's worse. This is all bad.
He thought that was failed. The fact that he tried to save himself, but that was the save, sir. You got this all. No, no, that does not make it better.
What actually makes it better is the fact that I was doing it in a see-through sheer bodysuit. That's actually what makes it the best, is that I was high femme when I kicked him out of my car. I had a red lip and a full beat. Get out.
You got to go. Okay, so look, that's a good segue though. Good segue. So another example, censoring yourself. Get the fuck out my car. That's the moral of the story to me. Get the fuck out my car.
Just get the fuck out my car.
But something that you just said, which was another thing, you said that you were high femme. So one of the very first conversations that Alexa and I had when we met each other was around gender and sexuality. And we have a lot of similar intersections in terms of being dark-skinned, not being skinny, black hair, dominant women. Just got a lot of shit going on. Lots of similar intersections where it was, for me at least, prior to Alexa, I had not encountered, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who navigated so many of the same intersections as I did, outside of my wife, who was my wife at the time, but my wife is not femme. So even that it still was different. And for someone to be able to kind of navigate both a femme presentation and a more masculine center presentation, we had all that stuff going on. So it was, she was really the first person I had this in-depth conversation about it with. And so I think that also ties into censoring yourself, because we both had to get to a place of not worrying about what other people think or the way that other people try to relegate us, which is very difficult, especially when you look at community, you look at, everybody kind of fits neatly into boxes.
Right.
Okay, well, we don't fit neatly into boxes, whether it's sexuality, whether it's gender or gender expression, because we're both like, well, we do identify like it's, it's not that we identify as trans or anything, but still, we still have a lot of nuance in our gender expression.
Yes,
and
yes.
There needs to be, room for that, as well as even something that you were talking about with there being room for you to not have to be lesbian. You get what I'm saying? Like to still have room for your queerness and that still be accepted, in the community and stuff like that without you having to be like a masculine presenting lesbian. If that was
yes, because I'm fat. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. So it's either where, because the thing is too, when you factor in size, I find that it's very hard for you to toe the line and kind of like be in this in between space. You either have to be masculine or high femme. So it's like
yes,
can't be. Both of us kind of navigate this in between space. But we can go in either direction because we could just do that. But when we factor all things in, like our energy and all that kind of stuff, we can really be in this in between place. And it's like, oh no, you need to choose. Either you're going to be a stud or you're going to be a high makeup. You know what I mean? Like it has to be.
It's like they make you choose. Like when I decided to cut my hair, it was like the first time I ever decided to cut my hair, it was a very intentional choice to be read as masculine because I wanted to be androgynous. I really did. I wanted this androgynous aesthetic. I thought
they don't make it easy if you're not skinny.
Oh my God.
I'm still like to this day. I literally was just talking to my wife about that. Like a bitch is struggling.
like what is it? Androgyny is not afforded to fat bodies. Like people don't want us to, like I be explaining to my little Scorpio boo, like, they don't make clothes. They just won't make the garment in my size. They don't make it. What do you mean? They will not make it. They won't make it in my size. So that means I can't wear it, even though I may want to, even though it may really embody what it is I'm trying to express. I can't have it because they simply refuse to make it in my size. So now it seems like all the fatties are either femmes or studs, but that's not the case. Right. Y'all just don't make no motherfucking clothes for us.
Yeah, it's like there's no androgynous like in between space, because the reality is if they make the clothing, it's not for our bodies. So it's like, okay, I got to go and buy ill-fitting men's clothing, or I got to buy men's clothing and then try to, get it tailored or get it to fit me properly, or I got to buy the women's clothing, do this, that, and the third. And it's an issue my wife and I talk about because we are similar in that regard. Like she has a more masculine presentation, but she's curvy. So we were looking at Dapper Boy. She got some stuff from Dapper Boy. Dapper Boy does fit curvy bodies. I mean, she got a blazer that's bomb as fuck. But my thing is, if you're broke, that's cost prohibitive. Like, when is that going to go on sale or something? Because it's cost prohibitive. But it's because it's such a niche market. That's why, because they're having to basically create it as the orders come in and stuff like that, because it is such a niche market, because that's not what's common. So it's like, if it were more common, then they would have lower prices too.
Right.
But make those things. I look at all these things. I'm like, oh, that's cute. Oh, that would embody really like the androgyny that I want to. And it ain't my damn size. It ain't gonna fit my hip. Like, it's
right. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's really, but it's like taking that into consideration. The reason why I brought that up in terms of centering yourself, because it's like an important part of centering yourself is in spite of. So it's like, in spite of the fact that this, and this may not exist for me. So in spite of the fact that I may be gaslit by my parents, I may be, under the weight of patriarchy, I may be discouraged from, being assertive. I may be relegated to extremes in terms of my gender expression because these certain things don't exist for me. I am still making the deliberate choice to center my damn self in spite of all that. That is radical to do, because we have so many things working against us. If everybody's telling you, hey, you cut your hair, you got to be like, okay, you're presenting as masculine, you got to stay that way.
Right. Yes. Like when oh my God. When I first came out, I came out as queer, and my second coming out was as bisexual, and people were just so mad. Like, and not like
came out again. I was like, oh snap, she actually came out, because you were debating. You were like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I'm like, girl, be your damn self.
It was internalized biphobia of like, what even is bisexuality? It was all of these messages that didn't have anything to do with how I felt or even how I behaved. So like I had to just get rid of those thoughts and just accept the gray witch in me, in all aspects of me, because I am like, right now I'm devoted to Oshun, and Oshun is just this feminine goddess. But I don't always wear like feminine things, and I always still feel like I had to divorce it from the clothes because it was making me mad and there was nothing I could do about it. Luckily, you know, there are all these little apps that you could find very femme things for the Lolo, McLolo. But on the other side of that, not so much. And I'm debating on if that matters to me anymore, and to see if I can find options, like what can I actually do? And if there's nothing I can do, then I'll be mad about it. Like, I'm going to be righteously mad about it and do my best to find that androgyny that is for my body, because
it's hard.
And it's hard in dating too, because as a bisexual and an androgynous person, sometimes you want to switch it up. And if you're seeing someone who is maybe not as queer as you, or is this heteronormative queer, they just flip the fuck out because you changed your presentation. I just changed my clothes. I don't know what you mean.
It's literally clothing. I'm still the same.
I took a shower and put on new clothes. What the fuck?
I'm just very grateful that, you know, regardless, but
exactly,
it's very difficult. I mean, you know, because I'm the same person, and the reality is, even in a dress, even sometimes in my most high femme presentations, my energy is very masculine. So it's just like, it really doesn't matter. I mean, people get so caught up in, you know, like, oh, you got to present this way, or oh, this means this. For me, I just want to have that alignment. I feel like my presentation and who I am, I guess, are not completely aligned, because I feel like my presentation is highly femme. And part of that is like, because of what you mentioned when you were like, oh, well, it's, you know, they have all these things where you can get all this femme stuff for cheap. And part of it is just things being cost prohibitive. For me to get things that are not so feminine, but to fit my body, there's more cost with that. I got to get stuff that is more expensive. I got to get tailored and all that, versus I know I can put on a dress and it's going to have some stretch to it, and it's going to stretch on over my hips. So it's like where I literally have shifted to this place of wearing clothing simply to cover my body, as opposed to it being a form of expression.
Right. Exactly. And that is a thin privilege. Thin people can walk into any establishment and pick up any garment for any occasion known to man, whereas non-thin people, we don't have that ability. Disabled folks, we don't have we don't have any of those options. Finding work clothes used to be a nightmare. That alone made me quit my job. Finding things that are corporate appropriate,
that are professional. Don't get me started with these hips and thighs and stuff.
Just finding a button-down shirt.
But you know, because of how the way that our bodies are viewed and are under this gaze, it's like, oh, well, you wear, no matter what you wear, it's sexualized, or it's looked at a certain way. I can wear a pencil skirt and a blazer, but because I'm hippie with a big butt and big thighs, I'm going to be looked at different and chick who's thin wearing the exact same shit.
Right.
You know what I mean, it's just not, or if I wear pants, it's like the pants are still going to fit my hips and my butt. Like, I can't do anything about that. Or I'm going to wear some baggy pants and be looking sloppy. You know, it's just, I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
That in like, despite all that, for us to, in like knowing that we're impacted by these things on every level and kind of like in every aspect of our lives, and still being like, you know what, I'm still going to censor myself. I'm still going to be androgynous on those days when I want to be androgynous. I'm still going to be femme when I want to be femme. I'm still going to beat my face, have this red lip popping.
Right.
Make those decisions, even though they go against so many of the kind of like the status quo, is a very, I mean, to me, that's when I talk about like, oh, censoring yourself, and like why I'm focusing on that so much for 2019, because I do think it's very important and it is very radical to do so. we are so discouraged from doing. We're very much encouraged, especially as women and especially Black queer folks. We're very much encouraged to put other people first. We are encouraged to be on the front lines for other people, to labor for other people emotionally, physically, all across the board, to raise grown men, to also raise children, to work overtime while you're doing it, and also cook and clean and all this kind of stuff. We are encouraged to very much be workhorses. We're not encouraged to be individuals who express ourselves, who make a decision about, this is kind of what I want my gender expression to look like. This is what my sexuality is, and owning it and just being like, I don't give a damn what you think. We are not encouraged to exist in that way and to take up space in that way. And I think that's a major difference between surviving and thriving. And I've gotten an opportunity really to witness you make that transition. To me, it's awesome because I remember, the conversations we had, and I remember just things that you were kind of just turning around in your head and just being like, well, going through that process of figuring it all out to get into a point where you're like, look, this is who the fuck I am. It is. You can get with it or not get with it. And I wish you the best, but you don't have to be around if I'm not for you. You might not be for me. That, just being unapologetic to me is so important. And I'm like, I find that the older I get, the more unapologetic I become, the more I'm just like, look, this is what it is. Like, take it or leave it. And I'm not going to cry if you leave it. Just do what you got to do.
Right. Like I was able to have an emotional growth spurt because I had dealt with some really hard garbage and found out that I was a risk taker and was actually just out here just being reckless and wild and fun. And that's who I am. That's so I can nurture that instead of like licking my wounds. I healed them. I just went ahead. There's this beautiful poem by Avion Whitney called The Too Much Woman. And there's a line that says that she learned how to heal herself, so they called her a witch, which is why the word witch, I associate it with healing because of how we heal, how we do magic as healers. So it's like I had to heal myself. I had to just go ahead and make the bomb for me so that I could be whole and like get some shit done, because there were so many things I wanted to do and I was tired of that particular thing holding me back, because the system is still in place. It's still, kicking me in the teeth, but at least it's not my parents too. Right. Shit.
It's like the stuff I have control over, I'm going to
exactly
and eliminate, because there's many layers of it that it's like, you know what, let me eliminate the layers that I can control. I may take shit from the world. So it's very much kind of that whole idea of, oh, well, the world is going to be hard on you, so I'm going to be hard on you. It's turning that on its head. Like, I can eliminate all these things or these people that are going to be hard on me because I have enough inherently that's going to be difficult on me just because of my pure existence, because of my Black, queer womanhood. I got all this shit built in. I don't need any more oppression. I don't need any more difficulty and hardship. And that's very much like, I'm all about that. I'm just like, I don't need it. So if you're not bringing light to my life, then I don't need it, because I got enough shit to deal with just existing, like literally just by us existing.
Like by existing.
Yeah, I mean.
And making a safe space and a soft place for you to fall.
Right.
I had to accept that it's so cliche, but failure is a part of the process. I had to reorient what I thought success was and make my own norms and values and beliefs about success, and to understand that failure was a part of that because it gave me information. I had to learn how to deal with my emotions. And I got blueprints from a lot of different places. Mostly Black feminist thought. Our four parents left us literature because we have the internet now, but at the time there was only the press. So these folks just wrote and wrote and wrote. And if for nothing, knowing that there was a woman in 1987 that is feeling the same thing I'm feeling right now in 2019, it's like talking to your ancestors. It's a solidarity that I, instead of begging white women to give me, I can just go find, No, sure. That was the lesson of 2018. That's another story, child.
No, that's so, I think that's so important because that's something that I've been able to do as well. Like, I just remember getting this, like getting different literature and things like that and being able to see myself in it. And it helps to situate you in like the historical context too, so that you know, hey, this is not new shit. You're not by yourself in it. You're not first to like traverse this. And that when you feel, especially going through things that feel so very isolating, it is helpful to know, like, there are people who lived through this before. There are people who processed through this before, and I don't have to be by myself.
Exactly.
So yeah. So before
and then to bring it up to like now, I curate my social media with thinkers, regular folks, just regular people who have thoughts and ideas that are kind of building on those things. And I keep that around me all the time. I don't consume any corporate media anymore because it just makes me anxious, just period. The moment I see a white face and a red or blue tie with a logo of something, I just freak out because I know I'm about to be lied to and they're about to say some reckless shit, some old bullshit. It's just about to be just garbage. And I just don't consume it anymore. I just don't. I curate my media, which the human brain does anyway, but now I'm being more intentional about it. I'm being very direct about who I look at every day, who I listen to every day.
So when it comes to centering yourself, it does have to be deliberate, you know? And so I think that speaks to what you were just talking about in terms of, well, you know, the brain already does this, but I actually, you know, I made sure that I went in and I had my own process and to do it, you know, to really streamline what I take in. And so when we do decide, you know, when you make that decision, hey, I'm going to center myself, I'm going to focus on me, then it does have to be deliberate. It cannot be a passive or circumstantial type of thing. So if you say, okay, for me, part of me centering myself is centering Black women and centering Black queer people. So that means I am going to, like you said, I am going to curate what I intake to be in alignment with that, because I'm going to, you know, have things that are in alignment with me centering myself. It doesn't mean that I just can't handle any opposition or anything like that, but I'm also not going, part of me centering myself is I am not going to debate or argue about my humanity. So I'm going to curate what I intake.
Exactly.
So that I'm not ingesting all these things that that dehumanize me. So, you know, and that includes people, that includes family, that includes romantic partner, that includes, you know, whoever. And so I think that a common thread in, you know, what we've been talking about is making those deliberate decisions to be like, hey, I'm not going to accept this, whether it's from people in your life, whether it's media, whatever it is, making a decision of your boundaries, really setting, establishing, and enforcing and reinforcing your boundaries for what you will and will not tolerate. So, but yeah, I want to, of course, thank Alexa for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. How about next time we'll talk about how to do this in friendships? Because that was also a big part.
Yeah, and that's honestly, yeah, that definitely is a big one. And that's been a big one for me too. So yeah, we'll have to, I want to chat about that. And I want to chat about I want to use basically the quote, because that's one of my favorite poems too, about, you know, she healed herself, you know, so they call her a witch.
Oh, yes.
But that's a whole other thing I want to do on like healing and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. So we'll circle back to that. But
yay!
But for this, yeah, I'm very glad that you came back on in this new year of our Lord 2019. Yeah, it's always good stuff. And, you know, I'm always interested to, you know, kind of discuss with people the ways that they have censored themselves. And I think it is so necessary for us to do as Black folks, as Black women, as Black queer women, like all those things is very, it's imperative that we do that. So, but yeah, has any of your social media, I always say social. Look, y'all. I'm from
your social media.
Has any of your social media changed since we last?
Nope. I think I'm still incredibly queer on Instagram, and that's the only one I'm gonna give you, because you don't really need to hear me screaming into the void on Facebook.
It's all good. I'll just relay the messages to y'all. I'm in on Facebook.
Yes, you are.
So it's still the same. So I'll, you know, do all that good stuff. All right. Well, that is it for this particular episode. I already know, which I told you from the jump. I was like, I already know I'm gonna have you on a few times. So just, you know, get comfortable. My listeners will become acquainted with your voice. So then they'll be like, we don't need to know her name. We know who that is.
Yes, I'm regular. Yes, you got a regular. You got a regular.
Right.
Oh.
It's always cool. Like so far, I've had you and one other person back on because I had Zay Chris back on too.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, because we talked about his clothing company launch. Anyway, I'm just digressing all over the place. Let me do my little outro. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. As always, it has been real. I'm very, very glad that you decided to take some time out of your day, night, whatever the situation is. Take some time out to listen to, you know, my Southern twang and to get to know another guest, get to know Alexa a little deeper. Yeah, tune in next time. I do have a lot of stuff going on. I am trying to raise some money just to support the podcast. And I recently got a request from a Black queer deaf person to transcribe the podcast. Amazing idea. Accessibility is very important to me. So I do think that it needs to happen. I'm one person and it's just me and Mane, you know, the producer. And so I know that like, there's no way I could by myself just, you know, go and transcribe. I have over 20 episodes. That's hours and hours and hours, you know, of showtime that I would have to go through and transcribe. So if any listeners know of any resources, know of any people trying to donate some, whatever, to support the cause, I'll be very grateful because I would like to make that happen because I think that they made an excellent point that, you know, Black, queer, deaf folks are also going through these struggles and they need community too. And they need to be able to know that they're not alone, you know, and they should have access to it. They shouldn't be denied access just because they are deaf. So I 110% agree. So I'm going to try to make it happen. All right, y'all. That's my little spiel for the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in and I'll highlight y'all next time. Black Radical Queer Podcast is all about intersectionality and Black queer folks sharing our stories on our own terms. We navigate an array of identities, and BRQ is an outlet where we can see the spectrum of those identities reflected, explored, and celebrated. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Javia Nicole, produced and edited by Charmaine Johnson. Music is by Publicity. You can find us on social media by looking up Black Rad Queer. It's BLK RAD QWR. We are on Facebook as well as Instagram and Twitter. Same handle regardless, at Black Rad Queer. BLK RAD QWR. We also have a Facebook discussion group that's just called BRQ Discussion Group. And you can also listen wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, Google Play, you know, all those types of things. And we have, you know, our home base that's on Libsyn, so you can listen on there as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure you come on back around next week to see what we have for you. And all right, y'all, I'm out.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.